Hello and welcome once again to the video. In this one I shall be continuing my look at every race in the 2025 Formula One World Championship. Something I've been doing for a few years now, but I've actually been following Formula One for decades, going back to the early 80s. Seen a lot in that time, but I am just a fan. I don't maintain to be a technical whiz on F1 rules and regulations. My strength is mostly in the history of the sport. My memory is very strong for things that have happened going back through the decades. But for this race, which is round 18 of the championship, so let's just write that up there. That's Singapore. I'm going to write a little bit larger as well, because I did have a comment saying could I write a little bit larger. Hopefully I can still fit everyone down here, but I write the finishing order of the top 20 down here, followed by the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship, followed by the rundown of the Constructors' Championship. As you can see, we are joined by George Russell. Now this is his 2022 W13 Mercedes, so this was his first Mercedes when he joined the team, expecting to join a championship winning team, and didn't quite work out that way. But what a fantastic year he's having. Not necessarily with results. I mean, 2 wins is good, but I wouldn't say that's fantastic. But just the way he's driving is fantastic, more so than the results. The results are good. The way he's actually driving in the car he's got is fantastic. Okay, so let's go up the top here then, shall we? We're going to do first place. Russell. Is that a little bit bigger? I don't know. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. I need to get that in focus though. I need to get that in focus. Okay, so second. Verstappen. Norris. Piastri. Antonelli. Leclerc. Alonso. Hamilton. Bearman, Sainz. Next was Bearman. Sainz will look at them about halfway down the page, so that's sort of almost perfect. Hadjar. Then we have Tsunoda. Stroll. And Albon, followed by fitted quite well. I think I've definitely written larger there. So let's do the Drivers' Championship. So we've got Piastri on 3, 3, 6. Norris 3, 1, 4. Now, I think all this time it has been in focus, but I'm just going to. Careful, careful, careful. Okay, good. Third. Verstappen on 273. Russell 237. Uh, 173. Leclerc. Hamilton. I think he's been in 6th place for 4 years, hasn't he, Hamilton? He's just been occupying that spot ever since the start of 2022. Antonelli. Albon is on 70. Hadjar 39. Hulkenberg 37. Okay, then the Constructors' Championship over here. So we have champions as well. McLaren 650. With exactly double the points of Mercedes 325. Ferrari 298. Fourth, Red Bull 290. Should I do the focus for that one maybe? There we go. Tap, tap. Okay. Fifth. Williams 102. Sixth spot Racing. Now, as you know, I don't like saying Racing Bull with an S on the end, so I refuse to. So I will call them Racing Bull Team, but I will write the S. So that's a compromise. I'm writing the S because officially they are Racing Bull with an S on the end, but I refuse to say, oh, so-and-so is driving a Red Bull with an S on the end. So I can't bring myself to say it. But I will write it. There you go. As someone pointed out to me in a comment, BRM in the 50s, that was British Racing Motors, of course, had an S on the end. So you would have someone in the BRM, someone in the British Racing Motors, someone in their British Racing Motors. But that was okay because it was abbreviated to BRM. So that was okay. I mean, this would be fine if it was abbreviated to RB, but it isn't. 72. Seventh is Aston Martin. There's 68, aren't they? 68, yeah. Sauber 55. Who's next? Of course, Haas. 46. 10th, Alpine. 20. Okay. So there you have it, and there it is. Let me just write down fastest lap first. Lewis Hamilton on his soft tyres at the end. Wins, Piastri 7, Norris 5, Verstappen 4, Russell 2. Very organised, just as you would expect it to be. As here we have McLaren on 12, Mercedes on 2, Ferrari with 0, and Red Bull on 4. So that makes less sense, basically. But that's because Red Bull is only one driver. Ferrari have had 2 scoring consistently, of course, as well as Leclerc picking up numerous podiums. So there you go. So what did we think? Are we still in focus? Of that race. Well, let's just jump straight to the was it turn 3? It was turn 3, wasn't it? The move by Lando on Oscar. Totally, yes, Lando's fault because he made a mistake. He hit the back of Max and went into Oscar. I haven't heard anyone talk about the fact, I mean, I think Lando's mentioned it in an interview since, but none of the commentators or pundits or anything or anyone have mentioned the fact that Lando was right alongside Oscar when the tap happened. So the corner was his, but I suppose Oscar would say, yeah, I was willing to give him the corner. He did give Lando the room on the inside, so maybe he's thinking, well, I was going to give him that corner, but then he suddenly drove into me. And that's a fair point by Oscar. So yes, it was Lando's corner. The problem is he was going so fast, Max didn't realise that the 2 McLarens were fighting him behind, so he was just sort of doing his bit in front. Lando just misjudged it and drove into the back of Max, light enough that Max didn't even feel it, apparently. And that sort of destabilised Lando. He got a bit of a snap of oversteer and he went into, what's his face? I suppose if you got oversteer, maybe it was oversteer that he then corrected, and that's what put him into to Oscar. Yeah, nearly put Oscar into the wall. That, God dear, can you imagine if he'd put Oscar into the wall? Dearie me, how do you, where do you go from there? That would have been a disaster. God. Now, even though I want Lando to win the championship, I would not have wanted Lando to have put Oscar in the wall, because, I mean, there are enough Lando haters out there already. We don't need more. And also, it'd be a terrible way to close up the championship lead for your opponent to go into the wall because you hit them. Lando has said the track was still slippery from the rain earlier, and also it was the start of the race. That's why the stewards are always more lenient, because it was the start of the race. And you always get these sort of things happen at the start. Oscar is extremely aggressive at the start of races. Clean as well. Yes, he hasn't, as far as I'm aware, Oscar hasn't hit anybody when he's been aggressive at the starts, either this year or last year. But a lot of that is down to the other driver jumping out of the way to avoid an accident. I mean, that certainly was the case in Monza last year, when Lando would have been expecting Oscar to defend him in his title fight, his unlikely title fight, but still he was in the title fight with Max, and he may well have expected a little bit of help from Oscar, but instead Oscar pounced like a tiger on Lando, and Lando had to jump, as he said after the race, he had to sort of jump out of the way to avoid having an accident and getting 0 points from the race. And the team did have a little bit of a dig at Oscar after the race and say, that's not how we go racing, Oscar. Oscar can't help it though. He comes across so calm off track. On track, he can't help it. And this, for once, was Lando doing an Oscar. Now, yes, I know what you're saying, and yes, I've just said that Oscar hasn't made contact, from what I can remember, with other drivers at the start this year or last year. What I mean by doing an Oscar is simply being very aggressive and punchy at the start. And when you're doing that, these things can happen. You can have scrapes, and the only reason why Oscar hasn't had contact on during his aggressive starts is simply because, as I said, often the other driver gets out of the way, like Lando did in Monza last year, to avoid an accident. I can understand Oscar, of course, initially being irritated by that, and everybody would be. Anybody in that situation, including Lando, would immediately be on the radio and saying, "What's that? He pushed me into the wall." The annoying thing with Oscar, I'd find it annoying if I was in the team, is that he goes on a bit, and he does it in a calm way, which I would find annoying if I was in the team. There's no emotion there. He just calmly says, "Is that what we're allowed to do now? Can we do that now? Can we push people in? Just get on with your racing, Oscar. Just go. It's done. We'll talk about it after the race." Well, yeah, but I think that's unfair. I don't think that's fair, mate. So anyway, and I would like to see Oscar be a little bit calmer after the race. He still seemed massively annoyed after. I don't mean immediately after in the bull pit where they have their interviews, because he hadn't seen the video yet. But I haven't seen anything saying, "Oh, yeah, I can forgive Lando for that. I didn't realise that he'd actually run into the back of Max first." I think Oscar should be a little bit more forgiving about the incident, considering how aggressive he is at starts. And Lando normally gets criticism for not being aggressive at starts. I think Oscar was sort of inferring that they should swap positions. He didn't specifically ask. I'm not saying he specifically asked to swap positions, but it was a little bit like, okay, what are we going to do about this? Look what Lando's just done. What are we going to do now? Right now, this lap, right now, what are we going to do? It was as if he was trying to get a swap. And he would probably think, because I swapped with Lando at Monza, what I want everyone to realise, of course, is that Monza was payback for Hungary last year. So that's 1-1, basically, with the handing positions over. Norris handed over to Piastri in Hungary last year. Piastri hands over to Norris in Monza. So it's worked out quite neat and tidy. So we can draw a line underneath those two incidents. Okay. A lot of people were forgetting Hungary last year, conveniently forgetting that when they were criticising the team in Monza. Right, because they weren't criticising them in Hungary last year. Yeah, so it was Lando's corner. He was right up alongside. You only have to get your front wing level with the side mirror when you're overtaking on the inside, but that still doesn't, mean that he should have driven into Oscar, of course, even though it was Lando's corner. Now, of course, the turn before that, turn 2, Oscar had drifted across because he wanted to defend, and that's fine. I think that's fine for Oscar to defend, but he saw Lando coming up the inside, so he drifted over, which would have pushed Lando off-piste, as it were. So Lando's angle into turn 3 was compromised, which would have made it more difficult for him to not crash into the back of Max, because his line had been compromised by Oscar moving across on him after turn 2, during and after turn 2. Which, I don't have a problem with Oscar doing that. It wasn't a sudden move. He just slowly drifted across. And that's fine. That's just normal defence. But that, unfortunately, led to Lando being out of position going into turn 3, which would have made it more difficult for him to avoid tapping the back of Max. Anyway, yeah, so yes, you could say it's Lando's mistake, but they're all making mistakes at the start. The drivers, including Oscar, have made mistakes at starts. It's just unfortunate that on this particular mistake, he just happened to tap Oscar. But Oscar only lost 1 position, and Lando was way quicker, even after he had a damaged front wing, which probably didn't slow him up that much, but still, even after that, he was way quicker than Oscar yet again. There's still that 22-point gap in the championship. despite the fact that for most of the year, Norris has been quicker, comfortably quicker than Piastri. I can only think of, obviously I will get comments correcting me, but or coming out with a different opinion, basically, and that's fine, I encourage that. But I can only think of 2 races where Oscar has been quicker than Lando this year, and yet he's won 7 races. And that's simply because of the mistakes that Lando has been making in qualifying and in the race, plus in Miami, a mistake by Max pushed Norris out of the way and Max out of the way, and Piastri came through and then eventually won the race. In Miami, it wasn't Norris's mistake. It was a mistake by Max that ruined Norris's race. But I can only think of 2 races, and they are Austria and Silverstone. Those 2 races worried me a lot because Oscar suddenly seemed to be quicker than Lando in both of them. Ironically, Lando won both of those races. Due to actually, I say Oscar was quicker. Oscar was quicker, I think, pretty much the whole race in Austria. But in Silverstone, he was quicker for most of the race. But towards the end of the race, Norris was definitely quicker. He had closed right up on Oscar just before Oscar took his penalty. So you could say 1.5 races then. Oscar has been quicker than Norris this year. All the other races, Oscar has been slower. And yet he's leading the championship and has won 7 races. And that's simply because he's more consistent, more in control, calmer. And that's probably going to win him the championship. I mean, coming to this race after Baku, this is another tight, twisty. I know the downforce is a little bit different. It's a little bit higher in Singapore, but it's still a tight, twisty circuit in parts with some horrible corners that you don't notice them until you're right on them. And both those races, Baku and Singapore. So Piastri did very well to come back and not have the same weekend as he did last time out in Baku. So he has very good strength of character. Strength of will. He's just, you can tell when he's getting stressed because he sweats. You can see sweat starts to form on his face. And his face goes a little bit red. But he doesn't, there's no other sign that he's getting stressed. So I think that's going to win him the championship. And that's fair enough. That's all part of racing. And it's not like he's slow. I just think that Lando has the edge on him most of the time for speed. But it's not all about speed. That's not the only thing. Also, Oscar gets himself into good positions in races from his starts. He has very, very good starts, as I've said many times. Whereas Lando normally has bad starts. This was unusual. This was a very good start for Lando, very reminiscent of Oscar's starts. Although Oscar doesn't have contact in his starts for reasons I've already covered. It's just luck if you tap someone or not to a large extent in those hectic starts of races. And so it's not skill that Oscar hasn't had those taps, whereas Norris has had a tap here. It's just, a lot of it is down to luck. You don't know to what extent the person in front is going to slow. All the cars are tight together. Lando was in a very tight position. Max right in front of him, like an inch in front of him, and Oscar an inch to the right. Oscar, to his credit, did leave, I think, more than a car's width on the inside of turn 3. But he had already pushed Lando offline going through turn 2. Anyway, I don't think Oscar did anything wrong at all. Apart from, yes, he made a mistake, I don't think Lando did anything wrong, really. It was just at the start of the race. It's just the way it is. But I certainly don't think Oscar did anything wrong with his defence. I thought it was odd how later on in the race they went offered or asked, they sounded a bit sheepish, but they asked Lando, "Oh, do you mind if and they actually said the wrong name, didn't they? Whose name did they say? Did they say Leclerc or something like that, didn't they? Or Verstappen? Whose name did they say? But they said, "Oh, do you mind if Russell or Verstappen or someone has their pit stop, 1 lap before you? Is that right?" And then they immediately changed it to Piastri. And I can't believe they asked, because I would have assumed that McLaren, in light of what happened in Monza and in Hungary last year, they would have decided, right, that's it, it's 1-1, it's 1 apiece. We're not doing this again. So we're just going to give the choice straight away, automatically, to the guy out in front. We're not going to ask him anything, I would have expected that to have been the case. But instead, they asked him. They said, Oscar, a bit threatened from behind. Do you mind if he goes first? I cannot believe they asked. Cannot believe that the team asked Lando. And Lando initially said yes. I was aghast. I could not believe that Lando was being Mr. Nice Guy again. What are you doing, Lando? You didn't get any praise for being... You never got thanked publicly, anyway, by Oscar after Monza. Oscar was just fuming over it. There was no thank you. Oh, by the way, thank you, Lando, for giving me your pit stop, which ended up being the fastest pit stop by any team all year. 1.91 seconds. That was the pit stop that should have been Lando's and was Oscar's. And Lando had one of the slowest at 5.9 seconds. But yeah, that adds insult to injury. The 1.91 second stop that Oscar had in Monza was the quickest all year by any team. But yeah, no thank you from Oscar. No public thank you, I should say, from Oscar to Lando for that. So there's no way that Lando would get any thanks for giving it to Oscar again. And he immediately, fortunately, he immediately changed and went, "Hang on, no, I'll do it, thank you. I'll stop first." I cannot believe the team asked him. All they're doing is potentially creating problems. And Norris had a normal stop, 2 seconds, something like that. Oscar then came in 5 seconds, 5.5 seconds. Almost, basically a repeat of Monza. Now imagine if Lando had given that pit stop to Oscar, like the team asked, and then Oscar had a 2 second stop, and then Lando had a 5 second stop and lost the position to Oscar. It would be exactly the same as Monza. They would then have to ask Oscar to move aside again, right? Which would then make it 2-1 in Lando's favour with the moving over. It was fine at 1-1. Suddenly it's 2-1. But also, would Oscar do it after what happened at turn 3? So, God's sake, the team just put themselves in this position. McLaren always do it. They should be extremely thankful that Lando very quickly changed his mind and said, "No, I'll have the pit stop." I was thinking, though, I wonder if Lando comes in first and then he gets the 5 second pit stop, and Oscar comes in second and gets the 2. Even though that would be frustrating for Lando, it would just be the way it is. Normally the one out front comes in first, so it wouldn't be anything to kick off about. But it certainly would have been something to kick off about had Lando given that first pit stop to Oscar. Thank goodness he didn't. Thank goodness. So basically, what else? Oh yeah, so there wasn't really a lot happening. I mean, I was stuck to the TV without blinking the whole race. But there wasn't really a lot of position changing going on. Russell was dominant out front after his pole position. He did go through a period where his lead went down from 10 seconds to about 3 seconds due to back markers. Plus Max was particularly quick, I think, on his sort of like in-lap, out-lap period on his hards after his pit stop. Plus he was better on his hards, I think, than he was on his mediums. Softs, sorry. He was on softs, wasn't he, Max? It looked like Norris was extremely confident of getting past Verstappen, but unfortunately they didn't stop Norris first, so he couldn't do the undercut. And even though he was a lot quicker than Verstappen on new tyres was quick enough that there was never going to be an overcut. So unfortunately Norris missed that. After the pit stops, he was about 4 seconds behind Max instead of 1 second behind before the pit stops. Piastri closed in at the end. He lost those few seconds in the pit stop, put him about 9.5 seconds behind. He closed right up to 3 seconds behind during that first batch of back markers. But then once Max and Lando had got past those back markers, Oscar then fell back again because he had to get through those back markers. So he then went back to about 8 seconds behind, and then he closed it back up again. In the end, he was about 2 seconds behind Lando. He would not have got past unless Lando made a mistake. So I was also worried that Oscar would do a lunge, because he's, as I've said before, second only to Max for fiery determination when going for gaps. He's the second most feisty driver out there, now that we don't have Magnussen. Antonelli, another good, strong performance by Antonelli. It's a shame, though, that we're saying 5th when his teammate wins and we're applauding him for being 5th. I mean, if he had known that in round 18 of the championship he would be getting a round of applause for finishing 5th when his teammate was 1st, he would be horrified. But compared to the season that he has had, apart from the odd standout like Australia and Canada, that is a good result. The last 2 races have been good, 4th and 5th. Leclerc, the Ferraris, their brakes went, didn't they? Now, all this Hamilton and Alonso nonsense, what is Alonso going on about? Why isn't Hamilton allowed to stay on the track? It wasn't like he literally had no brakes, because if I know he said he said his brakes have gone, and that's a bit like a Max. That's the sort of thing Max would say, isn't it? Max always likes to say, I can't drive in a straight line, I can't go around corners, the brakes have completely gone, the accelerator pedal is not operating properly, I can't see, I'm blind because my helmet's on back to front, I can't see where I'm going, the car is completely and utterly undrivable. I bet the team back in the factory and in the paddock, they love hearing these comments from Max on the track. I mean, they ignore the comments because they get big bonuses because of Max's performance, but under the surface, they would be a little bit irritated, I would think, by the way Max wears himself out throughout a race, constantly slagging off the car, and basically making it look like it's all Max, nothing to do with the car. Hey, look at that. He finished 2nd in the race, despite the fact that his car was undrivable. So I would suggest he was exaggerating. And I would say that Hamilton was exaggerating as well when he said that my brakes have gone. I don't have any brakes. Of course he had brakes, otherwise he'd have crashed into at the very next corner. So he did have brakes. They were just on their way out. Well, you can still keep driving. He was no danger to anyone at that point, so he can still keep driving. He can still defend his position to Alonso. And it wasn't like Alonso was behind him for very long. I was keeping track, and going into the last lap, he was still a few seconds behind Hamilton, I think. So he was only right behind him for the last bit of the lap anyway. So I don't understand why Alonso got so verbally aggressive over that. I thought that was a bit ridiculous. Over 7th place as well. So, black mark for Alonso there in my book. But yeah, the brakes not good on both Leclerc and Hamilton, but particularly on Hamilton because, of course, he put soft tyres on at the end. I don't know why. He was on hards, wasn't he? No, he was on mediums. And then he went on to softs, so he might have been the only one that didn't run hards. I don't know, but he went on to softs for the second stint. Was extremely fast, set the fastest lap, but of course, because he's going so quick into the corners, he's wearing out his brakes even more so. So the Ferrari's brakes were not good in this race. Leclerc's were suffering, but Hamilton's suffered even more so. Leclerc let past let Hamilton pass because he was going so fast. Hamilton closed in on Antonelli really quickly, and then immediately his brakes went. Or, not fully. His brakes didn't go fully, as I say, but his brakes started to lose their edge, basically, straight away. And he must have lost about a minute, I think, before the end of the race came along. Sainz recovered from the... didn't he start... Was it Albon or Sainz? I think it was Albon that started in the pit lane. Sainz started at the back of the grid. They were both disqualified from qualifying because the gap, when the DRS opens up, the gap in the rear wing was bigger than it should be, probably by about 1/1000th of a millimetre, but still, it was bigger than it should be. So they got disqualified. Hadjar was extremely annoyed about his team told him to, go slow because we've got engine problems, got to look out for the engine. And Hadjar was very annoyed about that. But he still finished the race in 11th. Stroll, he went longer than anybody, I think, on his first stint on soft tyres. Went into about lap 40. There's Albon. Lawson, yeah, okay, excellent. Colapinto, Bortoleto. Colapinto out. Did he out-qualify Gasly? I think he certainly finished ahead of Gasly, anyway. 19th place, I don't really know what was going on there. Bortoleto, Ocon, Hulkenberg. Something went wrong with Hulkenberg. He did a good qualifying session, though, for a change. So, there you have it. So in the championship, 22 points. Now, 6 races left, but also 3 sprints. If Norris retires from a race, championship's over, unless Piastri also retires. And maybe Norris will retire from the next one, and then Piastri retires from the 2 after that. You just don't know. But you tend to think that just one retirement from either one of them will win it for the other one, I think. Norris has got the edge at the moment. He's finished ahead of Oscar in the last 3 races. He's been faster than Oscar in the last 3 races. So, yeah, there you go. McLaren have got the championship. Oh, thank goodness for that. That means we don't have to listen to all the silly, pointless calculations about how they can win the championship. That's all gone now. All that pointless nonsense is finished. We don't have to listen to that anymore. Williams still, they've got 5th place nailed on. Red Bull, I think Mercedes, well, with Russell, I think Mercedes are probably going to hold on to 2nd place. Possibly. I mean, Verstappen has been 2nd, 1st, 2nd in the last 4 races. So it's 35 points, though. Antonelli's coming back into it, but Tsunoda isn't. So that could be the difference. Tsunoda could be the difference and will make Mercedes get 2nd place. Not that they really care massively. So what else? Yeah, I think I was commenting on Max constantly attacking his car and saying how utterly rubbish it is all the time. I think that's something that other drivers should do. See, Lando, everyone thinks Lando, mocks himself too much, attacks himself too much. He's just too self-deprecating. So maybe Lando should say things like that. So next time he wins a race, or he's 2nd or 3rd or whatever, he should say all the way through the race, he should talk about the car, how undrivable the car is, how rubbish the car is, did you really put four wheels on the car? Because it feels like I've only got 3. All these sort of things that Max comes out with. I can't do anything. I can't go around corners. It's impossible. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I can't. Now, Lando could come out with all of that stuff, and then he still manages to win the race or finish on the podium, and everyone will go, Lando, what a fantastic, you drove something that was impossible to drive, absolutely impossible to drive, and yet you still got it on the podium. You are fantastic. Of course, the team wouldn't like him for saying that, but Max gets away with it. But then again, it's Max, isn't it? But it's it could potentially make him look really good if he slags off the car throughout the entire race and still finishes on the podium. So that's an idea for Lando to do that, just to improve his image a little bit. Alonso and Hadjar, they had a very good scrap at one point, didn't they? I remember that. I just made a little note of that. Alonso got past in the end, jinked to the inside. It's a great little scrap that was between Alonso and Hadjar. Right, did I leave anything out? Great move by Lando. Stop complaining, Oscar! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! I put here. Stop complaining, Oscar. He does. I just find his complaining annoying the way he does it. But anyway. I also found it annoying when Lando was complaining in Hungary last year. Just let Oscar past. Yes, you are quicker than Oscar, and yes, technically Oscar should be helping you in the championship, so the team shouldn't be asking you to move aside, but they are. You know you're going to do it anyway. Do it now, then you've got 10 laps to get past Oscar, because you're faster than Oscar. He'd proven in that race, and every other race last year, and most of them this year. But instead, he spent 9.5 of the last 10 laps complaining about how he didn't want to move over. And by the time he moved over, it was too late for him to get back past Oscar. So I was annoyed at Lando's complaining then, and just I'm annoyed with the complaining that I hear Oscar doing in both here and Monza. And it's more annoying because he does it in such a calm way, which just is. It's just, and he keeps going. The team tell him to stop and he just keeps going. Anyway, I suppose they all do that to a certain extent. Right, so thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to subscribe, please do so, or comment on a video, or like the video, or leave a tip on the thanks button underneath the video. But basically, thank you for watching. And I will see you hopefully on the very next video.